Welcome. In this lesson, we're adding another key building block to our trading system, the supply and demand. This is essential because it helps us understand who's in control of the market right now. We learn techniques to evaluate which zones are relevant and which are not. The specific criteria we'll use to validate these zones will be covered in more detail in upcoming videos. But for now, you need to fully understand the foundation of supply and demand, so we can apply it clearly in the charts. Here's a chart example where price is running into a supply zone. It's important to realize supply and demand zones are areas where big market participants are likely to act. These players can move the market. They have the power to shift directions by opening or closing massive positions. In this example, we're in an uptrend and price reaches a supply zone, a level where we expect the selling pressure to happen. What happens in this example? We might see passive sellers placing limit orders in the supply zone. We see aggressive sellers hitting the market directly with market orders. And we can see aggressive buyers closing out their long positions and taking profits. All of these behaviors can trigger strong reactions in the price. That's why it's likely that a supply zone can mark a trend shift. Let's take it to the remarket though. Here's a clean example of a supply zone in action. The price was in a range up there. We see here, we had the previous high, we moved to a low again to grab some liquidity in a demand zone there. And from this demand zone, we moved up to a new high and we made an equal high there. From this equal high, we made a higher low. I've marked the H4 supply zone here in the chart. In this zone, we could have likely went and placed a short trade, but this one is rather risky than a safe supply zone. But we clearly see that the selling pressure was dominant here and that it was a valid supply zone and a potential trade setup. Now let's take a look at the other side, the demand zones. Just like supply, a demand zone is where we expect a large buying interest. In this case, price moves into a demand zone and we anticipate passive buyers offering liquidity, aggressive buyers entering with market orders, and aggressive sellers closing their shorts to lock in profit. Again, we're watching for the footprint of the big players here. Here's a real life demand zone again. We are in an uptrend. Price pulled back from the newest high with an impulsive short push. I've marked the H1 demand zone here. From this zone, we push into the high. The market reversed down very fast and we moved into the H1 demand zone again. Here we clearly see price action with the shadows of the candles and we could have placed a long trade here. The price action clearly speaks that here are large players active, establishing long positions and aggressively pushing the price upwards again. In upcoming videos, we'll dive into how to identify high quality zones and what specific criteria we use to validate them, so we can spot the best supply and demand zones with high probability trade setups. Let's keep building our edge.